Hey guys, it's Mike C with Unique Photo. I'm here in our Canon room, and today I'm going to talk to you about some tips and shortcuts to use with your Canon DSLR and 600EX RT flash. Now, a lot of you probably know how to use the equipment basically, especially if you've been doing weddings a long time. You know your ins and outs of the camera. But there's a couple shortcuts that I started using with the 5D Mark III, and we have the 7D Mark II here today that I found really helpful. The first is my favorite one. Right here on the camera, you have what was called the depth of field button, and no one really needs that to use it for that feature. You're not be checking your depth of field, especially with the flash on. It makes a burst come out of the flash and uses like a modeling light almost. Really not that useful of a feature. If anything, you might blind yourself or one of the other photographers by accident. So what I like to do is go into the quick menu right here. You push a Q and you scroll over to where you see custom controls. Now hit set. Go in the custom controls, scroll down to depth of field preview button. Right there you'll see I have it set already, but first you'll have it there. It'll be on depth of field preview. You can change it to any number of other settings here, but I found the most useful to be one shot AI servo toggle. So what that lets me do is it lets me press the button right here, hold down my ring finger, and it'll toggle between. So let's say I'm taking a picture like this. I use one shot most of the time. I'm focusing, doing some portraits. If my subject starts to move, or if the bride, starts to walk down the aisle, what I can do is just hold down the toggle, and it'll switch to servo. And in the viewfinder, on at least the 7D Mark II, I don't think on the 5D Mark III, but on the 7D Mark II, it'll give you an indication of that. So again, you're like this, one shot, get the beep. Probably going to turn my beep off, but this is just one of our demo cameras. Hold it down and servo, and you're good. So that's a really helpful feature. I found that some days I'll be shooting mostly in servo and I won't use it as much, but normally I do shoot in one shot. It's nice to be able to toggle back and forth. No other camera system that I know of has that feature right now, and it's one of the main reasons that I've continued to stay with Canon cameras. What I found to be useful is you can use the lever right here, and I wish I could have our video guy film through the viewfinder, because really what I'm doing, here we go, there's a nice shot. What I'm doing here is I'm using just the lever, and you can do this while you're looking through the viewfinder to toggle into the different AF area modes. And again, depending on your subject, like a lot of times for movement, I'll use this one here, right here, zone AF. Combine that with servo, and you can track your subjects. Generally, you place the group of focus points where you think your subjects are going to be. For a lot of the pictures I take, they're going to be in the middle or on the right or the left side of the frame. Really handy way to track focus. I found the system works well in low light. Kind of nice little transition there. What I find doesn't work well in low light, though, is this first mode. If you toggling through this manual selection, spot autofocus. Now that's different from your one-point autofocus. Spot autofocus is a really accurate way of focusing on a small point in a frame. But when you're using that with the AF assist beam on the 600EX RT, I found that it actually slows down the autofocus a bit. And we all know when shooting weddings, speed is an essential thing. So I found if you're going to use single point AF with your AF assist lamp on your flash, don't use the spot AF. It slows it down a little bit too much. Now I have my flash set up like this, and I'm not going to go over basic bounce flash technique, because you guys probably already know that. And we might do a more advanced video on different techniques and positions and off-camera flash in the future. But when you're using bounce flash, what I found is that when you're in a wedding hall, that you have all sorts of different ceilings. Churches have all sorts of different kinds of ceilings. When you're using bounce flash, your flash, the light hits that and returns a subject. If the ceiling isn't perfectly white, then the color cast is going to be a little different. What I suggest doing is you go into your white balance here, go over to Kelvin, and manually set your Kelvin white balance to be somewhere in between tungsten and in between daylight. This can really help save you some time in post-production, because you're still able to use your bounce flash and you're not getting the sucky auto white balance performance that the camera really struggles with trying to measure both the flash bounce and the ambient light. It just gets thrown off. So when you're bouncing flash in a room that has an off-white ceiling, it's definitely a good tip to do that. Now, one of the biggest things when I first switched to Nikon to Canon, I'm not saying anything bad about Nikon, I just really liked some of the features on the 5D Mark III when it came out, and this beautiful 600EX RT flash. One of the biggest things I struggled with was the ETTL2, ETTL, whatever they call it, that, the automatic setting on the flash that measures light. What you really have to do if you're bouncing flash, now for direct flash, it's not as big of a deal. What I found my life to be a million times easier when I went into the menu. I was so confused. I just started playing with things, and I found this made a big difference. And I've talked to other guys who have done the same thing. They've agreed. You go into your menu. First one at the bottom, flash control, ETTL2 meter. You change that from evaluative to average. Now that changes the metering pattern that your flash uses to determine how much light to output. Just like when you change your camera metering, I typically use center weighted, but that's, that when you shoot a flash, you have your flash exposure and your ambient exposure. Ambient exposure is separate, but I found that the TTL is much easier to work with and much more consistent when you change it to average over evaluative. For all types of photography, but for when I've been shooting weddings, and I've done a lot of them, I found it to be a very helpful trick. So on the 600 flash itself, there is a little button over here that says ZM for zoom, because you can change the zoom on the flash head, /CFN, custom functions. You hold that down, and what I like to do is go down here to this option. You'll see the flash exposure compensation icon and a wheel. Typically, when you want to change the flash exposure compensation, either brighter or darker, plus or minus EV, you have to push a button first, then spin the wheel. On this flash, however, you can change the option 1, which is just the wheel. Go back. Now I can change my flash comp by just turning the wheel. See how it says, you're 0. Let's say you're photographing a subject that's really light, like the bride in her dress. Just turn that wheel, +1, boom, boom. It helps you work so much faster. And that's what a lot of my tips are about today. I'm not here to change the way you shoot weddings. We can talk about more specific technique and, aesthetics of photography another time, but really what I'm trying to help you guys do is work faster with your Canon cameras, because again, wedding photography, boom, 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 you have to get things done. So that's one tip to really help you. Another thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to set up a basic off-camera flash with the 600EX. At least, again, just the settings, because I know when I first got the flash, the instruction manuals are always terrible. They don't really tell you what to do. So I just, I did a little bit of research on Canon's website, and I kind of just had to figure out how to set up the radio slave system myself. But first, what I'm going to show you how to do is, again, now, if you are using some infrared flashes as well, and you're not using the RT system on the 600EX flash, then ignore this part. But chances are you bought the 600EX for the radio transceiver feature. So what you do, again, on your flash, go into custom function, and then you'll see PFN. And I don't really know what PFN means. I'm going to assume it means preference functions. Just more custom functions. Go in the PFN. You see a bunch of different things here. Out of the box, your flash and camera will be set up to cycle through having the transmission system off, into radio, and into infrared. If you're just using the radio mode, which I do, and which I'm assuming most of you will be as well, you go to option 1, so that now, when you scroll through the various modes on here, the infrared line of sight modes won't come up. So again, it helps you work faster, it helps you cycle through the different modes a lot easier. Now the last thing we're going to talk about today is how to set up your Canon 600EX RT on camera as a master, and how to set up another light, which you can't see in our shot right now, off camera as a slave. Now there's a lot of ways to do this, but for wedding photography, especially during the reception, for portraits, this is the best way I figured out how to do it. Is take your flash, little lightning button, well that's what I call it the lightning button. Push that first. That will bring your flash into master mode. Now you would take your other flash and press it one more time, and that would bring you into slave mode. But we're going to set up our master first. Now you can put all of your flashes on TTL, but that's not the way I like to shoot. I've found it's most effective to first put this into master mode, then hit mode. So go to GR. You hit mode after you've turned the flash into a radio master into GR, stands for group. And I've already have it set up here, but I'll show you my settings. Group A in the Canon 600EX RT system, your on-camera flash is always in group A. And I'll leave that on TTL, and as necessary, I will go plus or minus based on what I think I need for my on-camera flash. Now, you will set up, now what I like to do next is set up my first off-camera light in manual. I'll show you how to do that. There's a little button here that says B mode. Out of the box, as you press it, it's just going to be in TTL. I like to have my second flash on manual because what I do with it is I stick it up in the corner and I point it into either the corner of a wall or hopefully if I have a low enough ceiling, I'll point it right into the corner. Now, I put that on manual. And the great thing is that people say, well, your manual, you have to change it. It's so easy to change on here. You just go into group, select B, hit select or set, and then you just scroll up and down. I'm at full power, now I'm going down. It's very easy to set. You go right for more, left for less. And generally, when I have that other flash set up in the corner, it's going to be as a background or kicker light. It's really just adding some light to the background. And for me, that creates, you want to try and not make it light the whole room, or maybe you do, depending on what kind of shot you're doing. It can overpower the ambience, the feeling of the room a little bit. But really, for me, it helps take away the dark pit behind people when you take a picture of them, and it's a really dark room. It helps add a little bit more three-dimensional look to your images, depending on where you position your subject. One of the great things about this system is that it's also very easy to turn a group off. So let's say I just want to use my off-camera light, and I want to turn my on-camera light off. We go here, turn the off. Again, the on-camera light is always group A, so I'll turn that one off, and now I'll just be firing with my off-camera light. So I'll take a picture of our beautiful camera guy over here, Sergio. So that's just with the off-camera light. Now I can also do the opposite. I'll turn group A back on, and I will turn group B off. So now this is just with our on-camera strobe. Man, that beep's annoying. Who put that on? Guy shooting with that must be a noob. Anyway, so now I will turn both on. So I have my manual, turn it down a little bit. And I also am going to turn my TTL down just a tad. So now I'm going to get a more three-dimensional look by shooting with both lights. I mean, there's a lot you can do here. It's such a fast and easy system to use. I hope you guys will tune in, see some of my other videos where I go over more wedding photography tips. This is just our first introductory one to help you get your working faster with your cameras. Because, look, I've been there before. You're stressed out. You have a bride that's complaining. The more you know how to use these cameras faster, the better it's going to be. I could really step into a room with my eyes closed and be able to change the settings on my camera fast. It's really that easy. Like, subscribe, check out other videos on our Unique Photo YouTube page.